Chalk up, yeah. Welcome to Detroit, the Motor City streets, where the legends rise and the heartbeats meet. Podcast spinning tales of the 313, bringing that raw essence, can't you see?
Welcome back to Fan Form Podcast, off-season style. With me, as always, is the luscious, the inspiring, the magical, the busty Hitch.
I think busty might be the only truth you just spoke, but thanks for the warm introduction.
Oh, you're welcome. You look pretty warm there in the shop today.
See, I got a new buddy Eric brought me over a new heater.
Nice.
One got some firewood this week. We're fully stocked up, so we're good to go. It's like 70 degrees out here right now.
Well, it probably doesn't hurt too that it's almost, well, it's later now, but I think it got up into the 50s today, melting all that snow.
Oh yeah, my 110-foot tall blow up Santa is finally not frozen to the ground.
Oh, you're one of those people?
My neighbor, dude, the snow hit, the ankle surgery happened, and like we got most of them up, but the Santa was frozen to the ground.
I would have thought in Grosse Pointe it would be a felony to leave your Christmas decorations up post January 2nd.
Well, I think it was buried by snow for long enough, and then I got it up, but it was too wet, so I kind of piled it up out of the way. But I can actually take it in the house now.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that. So listen,
out on the front lawn, it's staked in. It's raining right now. Just so you know.
Is it raining?
No, the Santa Claus.
Yeah.
I freed him from the driveway. He's laid out on the front lawn.
I saw that. Yeah, my buddy Eric's here telling me that when he got here, it was so warm that he chipped out what was left of the ice and spread them out in the yard. So he's sun tanning right now. Let's say that.
Santa's all sprawled out on your front lawn.
He's so full of water.
Santa baby.
Getting that last holiday joy all over the neighbors. I like it.
You know it. I got to let them know that, I don't want to set the bar too high over here.
Yeah. Cutting your grass weekly is, you've already done that.
Yeah, it's about all I'm willing to do.
Well, listen, dude, I know Wayne can't join us tonight, but we got a little group chat going on, and we started talking about Combine. We started talking kind of draft talk. I know you're itching to talk some prospects. I know you're itching to throw some names out there. I'd like to say I'm so once again disappointed in our local radio stations, because on my way home today, I was looking to get inspired, by some draft talk, and all it was low-grade Brad Holmes, Phil Donahue bullshit. That's all it was. Like, I'm so fed up with with this fan base that picks this guy apart.
Well, part of that is like for the 97.1 commute home, it's Valenti, and I think the new guy's name is Rico or something. But the whole thing there, man, it's their job is point counterpoint, right? It's like Skip and Shannon Sharp. Somebody has to be the contrarian, and Mike Valenti has settled into this just never happy, always bitching personality, on-air personality, if you will, and it is hard to really tune in because that's our only sports radio option. I think it's probably pretty close to the same for Wayne over in Canada, but it is disheartening when you're feeling good. You got over this early exit playoff loss. You're looking forward to the combine starting. You're starting to talk draft with all your buddies, and then you got the only two guys on the radio just arguing for the sake of arguing, and I listen in the morning. I like Jensen in the morning, but I don't listen to Valenti anymore. And I used to be a big Valenti fan. But after he went viral a few years ago with his Michigan State rant, they got so much attention nationally from that it just became point counterpoint. And it's not productive. It's not entertaining. So I don't look to those guys anymore to fill my ride home. I subscribe to some services that give me, I think I subscribe to The Athletic. And then I podcast. I have a couple podcasts very similar to what we do. I have a couple of guys, just normal dudes talking Lions, and a couple of the Athletic podcast about the Lions is really good. And that's what I've been relying on for the last 2 years as well.
Well, I just think it's a shame because, I get it. I get what the drive time radio is all about, but I was at least hoping for names. We're not going to sit here and proclaim that, you and I have studied tape on every single one of these players. But the best part about this time now is you start hearing names get dropped out at who should be going to who based on what these scouts are talking about, right? So you're right. I had to do my own research and I
Well, and
had
I
to
think we'll
use
hear
my
it'll
own.
get there after the combine. I'm sorry if I interrupt you, but we'll get there after the combine. I think even Valenti's negative ass is going to be talking names, and there's going to be risers and there's going to be fallers. So once the combine starts, I hope that it comes around.
Well, what I'm trying to do here is say you and I are actually going to sit here and throw out some names tonight that guys that we've looked at, right? And once again, get ahead of the local media like we have done this whole entire season. And I want to say the 18 people that watched last week, you should still be watching by now. We're only 6 minutes in. Write these names down and seriously think about it because I want to get more action in the comments, right? Like, I want some of the people that actually listen to not only put the feedback in there, but especially with this draft coming up and the combine, start filling our comment section with what you think and who you think and why you think. You could put out the most outlandish idea out there, but like, let's put some stuff up against the wall and see what sticks because Mel Kiper's a jackass. Todd McShay's an idiot. And the most accurate mock draft out there on the internet comes from the most archaic site that known to mankind that is Walter Football. And it's Charlie
Walter
Campbell's
Football.
mock draft.
Walter Football is a gem. If people aren't looking at Walter Football, and now I think they've branched out to Walter Hockey and Walter Baseball, and could be wrong, but they are a gem. And nobody is as accurate as, what do you say his name was, Charlie Campbell?
Charlie Campbell, he has been for the past couple years more accurate than anybody out there with his mock drafts. And, I'm not like I was saying earlier, I'm not going to proclaim that I've studied all this tape. I'm not going to proclaim that we've been at these, we're going to go to the combine and take our notes with our press passes, right? But I want everybody out there, check out Walter Football, because if you're looking for a place to start with where you want to kind of pick a guy and watch him through the combine or where you want to argue with us, that's where you should do it. And subscribe, because so many people that watch this damn thing haven't hit the subscribe button. So, like, I want you to click the frickin' subscribe button and the notification thing bone so that you know when the episodes pop.
Well, and just to get into the algorithms, if anyone out here is giving us the time of day, if you haven't dumped off at 9 minutes, subscribe. If you don't want to see every short and listen or watch every episode, turn off the notifications, but subscribe for us, and that forces us into algos.
I just told them to turn on the notifications. You're telling them to turn off the notifications.
I'm saying if they want to meet us halfway and subscribe, man, that'll force us into more alga, right?
I love it. Yeah, but that's my rant on that. But yeah, so back to this mock draft, back to the combine. The combine's coming up, just so everybody knows and why I'm saying this. It's coming up in a couple days.
Yeah,
this Thursday.
Thursday, the big men go through drills. Thursday, I think it was. I read Thursday, the D tackles, the DNs, both sides of the line are going to go through the agility drills and the bench press and the 40 and the cone and the high jump and the long jump, and we'll get some actual numbers. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think everybody will be put through the paces, so we'll know a lot more when we get on next time.
I agree. I just hope everybody listens and subscribes. I can't say that enough. I'll end it at that.
So what do you want to do now? I think I want to definitely touch on some prospects, even though it is pre-combine. And then I sent you guys a list of a top 101 or something free agents, and all of this will change. We covered this last time too. This is all hyperbole at this point. We don't know, besides for a few dudes that have been announced as cap casualties or guys that are been told that they're going to be cut already. We can get an idea of who's out there, because we can't forget, even though we get all jazzed up for the draft and we love talking about the draft so much, it's a two-pronged approach, right? Actually, a three-pronged approach, because we have to bring it in and reevaluate and decide who we want to keep. There's a couple of big contributors, starters on this roster that may or may not be back. And then come March, I think mid-March, free agency starts, and that's going to drastically affect what we do in the draft, or what everybody does in the draft, right? So all these mock drafts right now are for fun, and we're getting to know these names, but it's all going to change. So I think we need to talk about some prospects at this point that we feel would be available to us, assuming that we stay at 28. And then we also need to talk a little bit about some of these best available free agents. So what would you like to start with?
Well, here's what I'm thinking we do. We talk about our free agents that we want to keep. Who do you want to prioritize re-signing? I think we start there, because now that Brad's done a better job of building up a stronger roster, we can't lose sight of the guys that we put out there for last year, right? I know one that picks up top of my head instantly.
Who's that?
Carlton Davis.
He's on my list. There's two. Without Googling it and looking at everybody, there's two, maybe three, that I would certainly prioritize and not be scared to pay the fair market value. He's one of them. I think Barnes is an asset to us, and what I'm reading says that he should command somewhere around $8 million a year for 3 or 4 years. You know, he's been a little bit of a project, but he was really starting to pay dividends before he got hurt. And it was unfortunate. It's unfortunate anytime anybody gets hurt, but he was really starting to show up and pay off, and then he was done for the year. I wouldn't scoff at 3 years, $8 million for Barnes. And then we got to look at what we're doing on the offensive line. We have one of the best, but one of the oldest, right? Do we want to spend money on a guy like Graham Glasgow? You know, who's the cat that we brought in from Baltimore? I always draw blanks, but
Kevin Zeitler.
Kevin Zeitler. I wouldn't have a problem giving him what the market commands on a 1-year deal, drafting a replacement for him, someone to compete, someone to learn. So those off the top of my head, Carlton Davis, Barnes, and Zeitler would be the three that I personally would prioritize, again, without pulling up the whole list and looking at everyone.
The only one that I think that I would question on that list would be Barnes. And I think we all had a soft spot for Barnes because when he was drafted, where he was drafted, what we want out of the linebacker position, how we did see him grow into a leadership role. But we've hit this injury word so many times. And I'm telling you, when we talk about prioritizing free agents, the ability to stay healthy is a big thing here in Detroit, right?
Absolutely, especially after last year.
Exactly. So I'm just a little cautious, let's say, especially a guy coming off an injury. I'm not saying he's injury prone because he's still pretty young, but he just, that's my only asterisk on that one.
So let me put it to you this way then, just for conversation's sake. If he wanted to give us a hometown discount, just, you know, he loves the culture, maybe he loves Campbell in the locker room. We drafted him, we had faith in him, we put work into him to get him to where he's at. If he wanted 3 years at 6.5 or 7, would you feel better about it?
Hometown discount, I think I'm okay with that. Again, I'm not against it. It's just the only one that I'd say let's look what else is out there for the money. But I'm not going to be mad.
Now, do you view him as a 2 or a 3 down linebacker, realistically?
Realistically, a 2 down. I think when he got drafted, we viewed him as a 3 down. We wanted him as a 3 down. I think they tried to use him as a 3 down. And I think it's just, they put him right back on the special teams. And then he kind of saw that perfect little role for himself, which again, I want him back, but
I think if he goes into free agency, he's going to get his 3 years at 7, 8, 8.5, or even 9. Bad teams always overpay.
They sure do.
But he's going to get a contract worth what his projected market value is. Part of me always has a hard time parting with players that we've drafted, players that fit culture. Now the culture here is such a big thing. He's near the top of my list. What I saw last year before the injury tells me that I do think he's a 2 down and a situational linebacker, but he's a leader. He's gotten better every year. besides for the, I mean, even with this injury year, he flashed. He was, well, I shouldn't even say flash. He wasn't flashing, dude. He was playing at a high level. So
He was playing intense. He was hitting at a whole nother speed.
yeah. And he had some glaring errors early in his career, but you can't forget that interception he had in the playoffs. You can't forget the plays that he's made.
No, he looked like a different player, like he evolved. So I know you said without pulling lists up, so I pulled the list up.
Okay, good.
And, it's kind of ironic. A lot of the players that are on this list were a lot of the players who were injured, right? So
Sure.
as I'm going through this and I tell myself, okay, throwing a criteria out, the only one I can see on there outside of whom we just mentioned, and the caveat is he stepped in for an injured player, is Muhammad. That DN listed as a linebacker.
I think he came in from Baltimore, either released. I think he was released from Baltimore after having a couple productive years.
I mean, he got 3 sacks just coming in midway through the season with us, right? So again, we're reaching because there's a lot of players on there too, where if I'm Brad Holmes, I'm going, okay, guys, I know, I appreciate it, but there's got to be somebody out there that isn't going to get injured.
Well, there also has to be this cost benefit analysis, like with anything, right? If we can lock down a guy like that for 2 more years for a couple $1,000,000, like abso-fucking-lutely. Look at that list. What about the dude that we brought in from Tennessee after we handled Tennessee? I think his name is Long.
And what position?
He's a linebacker. If he's not on that list, it means he's not a pending free agent.
Yeah, I don't see him on here.
Okay, so there's guys like that. There's guys like Long and this guy from Baltimore. What's his name?
Well, your boy Levi Anzarike, too. He's on this list.
That's something we need to talk about. That's something that I want to see him flourish. I want to see him play up to the potential that he had when we drafted him. We've said it a bunch. He had the injury distinction. There was a long period of time where we didn't even really think that we would see him play or contribute. He contributed at a very consistent level at the end of last year. It would be really nice to see him earn another contract and continue to contribute. But if you're asking me about injuries and the propensity for reoccurring injuries, I think that if we don't have the money or want to spend the money elsewhere, he might be first on the block. We also have to remember, and we haven't talked about this at all yet, that the cap went up. And over the next 2 years, the cap is projected to go up to almost $300 million.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, dude.
That's so much money.
And that makes the restructuring that we've already done an easier pill to swallow. Currently, you can fact check me if you want, but we have a little less than $50 million in
51.
51. And then the cap goes up. And then as far as dead money goes, I'm going to throw this number out there and it's going to blow everybody's mind, but we're doing real good in this regard. I believe we have $19 million in dead cap space. And I think that places us at like 5th or 6th, maybe 7th in the league. So it could be a lot worse. You remember all that dead money we had when Patricia left. So we're doing all right in dead money. We're doing great in cap, and the cap is going to go up. So if the cap is projected to go up to like $281 million by next year, that makes a guy like Barnes at $8 million a little bit easier of a pill to swallow. You don't know how much it's going to go up, but at this point in time, you know it's not going down.
No, good call on that dead money stat. We're 18th in the league in dead money. So
there you go.
Yeah, we inherited so many bad contracts that the dead money was, I think that's a stat I just stopped looking at for the last couple of years. I'm trying to forget about.
We're probably still paying fucking Flowers. You remember that was Patricia's big splash, and not a knock against the guy.
Trey Flowers.
A fine football player, but he was hurt early and often and just couldn't come back and never paid off. A lot of dead money there.
I don't blame any player for underplaying for that fat piece of shit because I really don't. He was a terrible coach. I think he is now a coach at Ohio State. I don't know if we talked about this before.
Perfect spot for him, dude. What a perfect landing spot for such an epic piece of shit. Send him down to Ohio and let him rot.
Let him rot.
Go coach with the beard. You got 2 fucking beards over there that are just absolute garbage humans.
Well, I don't see his name on the dead money list. And I think a lot of those contracts, like to your point, Hitch, have gone off. Although
Is Brocker still on there?
I don't see Brockers on here. I really
He's-
think we've pushed through that
yeah,
era.
if we're sitting at 18th, that means we're doing better than average, and it's an okay spot to be in considering how much dead money we have from guys like Flowers and guys like Brockers and all these free agent. Not saying that Brockers was a failure, but all these free agent failures that we brought in throughout the years. So they're not only able to evaluate talent, but they're also able to manage their fucking cap, which is obviously easier said than done.
A lot easier said than done. And I know we talk about how the NFL money is kind of fake and inflated, but there's so many penalties and there's so many repercussions on these bad contracts that if you don't get a hold of your cap, you're punished for 20 years. I mean, if you really think about it.
And you know what? I don't know the answer to this, but it's worth mentioning. Maybe somebody out there can enlighten me. But you have a team like the Lions with $51 million in cap and relatively less than average, at least, dead money. And then you got a team like New Orleans that has just operated tremendously over the cap for years and years and years and years. They are in cap purgatory right now, but I have not seen them make any real tough cuts. They still have their stars, if you will, on this roster, and they're always in the negative. So how is that allowed to exist? I don't know. I'm sure I can look into it or Google it, but I don't know. How can we be so proud of ourselves for having 50 or 51 million in cap, and then you got a team like just 50 or 20% over the cap every year?
Well, I'll tell you what right now, taking a look at their cap, Derek Carr, he's got $51 million that hits to their cap this year,
Jesus
right?
Christ.
So getting rid of Derek Carr frees you up of 51 million. Obviously, there's your dead cap, right? So it's the pre-June 1st cut. Cameron Jordan has a hit of 20 million. Taysom Hill has a $17 million cap hit.
That, sir, is fucking ridiculous.
Oh my Lord. Eric McCoy, 15 million, Demario Davis, 12, and then it just continues. You get the Honey Badgers hitting 11 million with the cap hit.
I mean, a lot of these guys under contract are okay. You know, they've been able to keep guys together, but how are you allowed? My question here, again, I don't know the answer, but how are you allowed? What's the fucking point of the cap if you're allowed for the last 6 or 7 years to be 50 million over or 42 million over? How ridiculous is that?
Now, I know in some sports there's a luxury tax that kicks in,
i.e. baseball.
There you go. Is that something you'd want to see in football?
I mean, maybe they already are paying penalties. Who the fuck knows? But who has more money than the Fords besides for the Catholic fucking Church? If you can be 50 million over the cap, pay the fucking penalties. Bring them all in.
Well, here's what I'm seeing. Some teams like the Saints and the Rams are aggressive with cap loopholes, and they're constantly restructuring. So there you go. They're working around loopholes.
Well, and
loopholes created in this contract.
The restructure is one thing, and that's something that we should all be familiar with because of Matt Stafford. It's not often that you find a guy like Matt Stafford that will restructure to stay on a losing team. Teams that have potential or their window was once open, I understand guys restructuring to stay where they think they could win. I think Seattle has done a lot of restructuring over the years, but why restructure to stay somewhere to lose games, right? Matt Stafford.
Well, what about this? How about this strategy? The cash over the cap. So now you're giving out cash, paying it out, and right? Bonuses. Huge signing bonuses up front, and you work around it. Can you think of the 2 top teams that have done this?
Giving bonus over contract structured money.
Signing bonuses, yeah.
If I had to guess, I would say it would probably be a team like Kansas City. If we talk about propensity to exploit loopholes, I would think the Patriots, but they're nothing to write home about. I don't know that.
You're thinking of the old Patriots. Well, think about, all right, the Browns and the Eagles.
Well, one a fucking shit show, the other a champion. So I guess there's 2 ways to run an agency.
So there goes your strategies, right? There's your risk versus reward. right? I mean, the risk is you end up like the Browns. The reward is you get a trophy like
Well,
the Eagles.
and the Browns might be an outlier because how much of that fucking money is Bill Cosby's? What's his name?
Oh, Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that is epically bad. It's going to go down in history as potentially for decades to come the worst free agent move ever. But bad franchises do bad franchise stuff. Cleveland is going to do Cleveland stuff. They're terrible, right? And we were in that boat for a long time in that echelon of Cleveland, but we were able to get out of it without this cap hell, even though we have so much dead money. That's why I don't understand what the incentive is if you can be that far over cap.
Here's the incentive: a Super Bowl, because the Saints, the Rams, and the Eagles have all recently won Super Bowls.
But what is the penalty for being that far over? Because let's go over. Let's trade and let's draft and let's just sign everybody and go over.
Well, basically, it's creative counting, right? So there really is no penalty if you do it right. The penalty is if you go over the cap technically by a certain date, you're not allowed to sign any more players. However, though, once you've hit that date, you can do all the creative accounting as you want and restructure and take and defer to bonuses to get you right back onto that number, just to let you play through the season.
So a year or two from now, there would be nothing stopping us from handing Aiden Hutchinson $110 million as a signing bonus and then giving him another 60 mil over 7 years or 5 years.
Depends how creative you want to get.
And then you can always ask them to defer like they did with Stafford. Like, let's restructure. Let's give you a bunch of money now. And
exactly. It's, do you trust your organization to be able to do those, to play those games, to be able to leverage, to have the ability to sit with these agents, right? The Rams were so transparent that they wanted to do everything they could all in on a Super Bowl with zero given, right?
Well, i.e. the Stafford trade, that was Super Bowl or bust, and it just so happened to work out famously for both of us.
But the Eagles, on the other hand, it hasn't been out of desperation. They didn't get Darius Slay out of desperation. They didn't make all those signings out of desperation. They did pay money. They did pay up, right? And they drafted really well. But I think it's, how do you want your GM to be, short term or long term? Because I think if you want to be long term, it's the payout, the high dollar cash signing bonuses. If it's short term, which I don't like, it's what you did with the Saints and the Rams, because like you said, they're in cap purgatory now, and it's harder to dig yourself out. Your owner can find millions of dollars in between the seats of his Bugatti, right? The Ford family's not cash strapped.
Unless everybody is willing to restructure to win a Super Bowl, i.e. Detroit, at what point are these guys just like, fuck it, let's go to Kansas City, right? I mean, if it was that easy to keep it all together, we wouldn't be worrying about, do we keep Hutch or these 4 other All-Stars.
Well, I don't think it is that easy, and that's a good point that you're highlighting, because I'm making it sound that easy, but it's not. It's an absolute nightmare. There's so many ever-changing conditions, and you can't predict the future. So you're right. Brad Holmes already went public and said our first priority is to already lock up Hutchinson on an extension, right?
It has to.
And well, when you're listening to good old 97.1, they're saying, I don't know. I'd let him hit there and then franchise tag him because he got injured.
Listen, dude, as far as fucking Valeni goes,
it wasn't Valeni.
Was it Rico?
Yeah, it was Rico.
Well, I mean, I'm not
Be careful. I used to work with his brother.
Maybe I'm just lamenting Terry, but I've never been a huge fan of Rico. But as far as they go, and Valeni in particular, if you don't play for the Giants, have potential to play for the Giants, or went to Michigan State, he doesn't want to talk about you.
He doesn't like the Giants.
I thought the Giants were his team. Did he back
They are.
up?
I'm just saying he stopped watching it. And again, I don't listen to a lot, but he made a comment about, he even said to his dad, how do you watch these games still? I'm not even watching it anymore. So I think he's gotten to the point, like we did with the Lions, that he's got with the Giants. He's fed up. He's done. But again, I don't want, that was just a little point right out there. Is just, yeah, well, I don't want, we don't need to talk 90.
Let's summarize it by saying this. We just spent better part of 25 minutes talking about the cap. Let's just transition. We said all we can say, I think, about the cap. Let's talk about free agency here, because
Okay.
that's going to come before the draft, and we don't have anything really to talk about the combine yet. So can you pull up a list?
I can, and I will. Maybe I already have.
I bet you did. What I want to do is if you're cool with this, I want to go through like just the top 20 names. Tell me, let's talk about their age. Let's talk about what maybe they're expected to get on the open market, and let's look at it from the standpoint of, if a guy like Barnes walks, if a corner takes a better, more lucrative deal, if someone's willing to overpay, what are we looking at here?
So
By
do
way
you
of
want me
replacement.
to give you the list of free agents, or do you want to go by position that we're interested in?
So what I would like to do, if it's cool with you, is just look at the top 100 and immediately omit any quarterback, right? We're not going to go unless we're looking for some depth, but we got a project already in Hendon Hooker. I don't want to hear about Russell Wilson. I don't want to hear about what's his nuts, Justin Jefferson out of Pittsburgh here. The list I looked at had Justin Jefferson ranked like 21. Well, we shouldn't sign Justin Jefferson. So let's look at, I think we're okay at running back, but we need to look at receiver. We need to look at O-line, D-line, cornerback, safety, what have you. But we don't need to waste time talking about quarterbacks, running backs, kickers.
Well, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, and I don't really get it, and maybe it's just because of the position he plays, but T. Higgins is listed as the number one free agent on every list.
I see that, and I get it. I mean, you want me to...
Why do you get it?
So I think that he has been the league's best number two, not from a production standpoint, because he's playing next to arguably the best or one of the top three wide receivers in the league. He's one thing the Lions don't have right now, because I believe Tim Patrick was here on a one-year deal and is scheduled to be a free agent if we don't re-sign him.
Correct.
One thing we don't have, we have good wide receivers. We have two very good wide receivers. We have an awesome tight end, two actually, but we don't have the outside X, and teams still covet the outside X. And he has been able to put up solid numbers. Can you see his age there? I think this is the
26.
Okay, I was gonna guess he was gonna be right around 27 or 8. So a guy coming in at 26 years old with his physical makeup, with what he's been able to do under the shadow of one of the best wide receivers in the league, even though he does have an elite quarterback, I think speaks volumes. You get your gigantically large outside X, who has been a pretty much a perennial 1,000-yard receiver, if you will, a huge red zone target that is only 26 years old. There's a lot of guys, I bet, down this list that are going to command a lot of money, kind of like the D end that has been in the news requesting a trade, right? You know who I'm talking about. He just turned 30. You got a guy that's 26 who is a veteran.
Yeah, but look at him. He's a freak of nature.
He's a veteran in this league. He is built like an absolute athletic, physical freak, and he has proven that he can fill the role of outside X number one. So I think that rightfully so, at least on the offensive side of the ball, he's the most coveted guy right now. And you have other good wide receivers. You have Chris Godwin comes to mind. He's older. He's injury prone, right? Probably a Hall of Famer, but older and injury prone. So if you're looking to get a cornerstone of your offense for the next 4 to 5 years that can be productive, it's him. Obviously, you got a guy like Cooper Kupp on the open market now, old.
Well, you're trading for Cooper Kupp, let's be honest. You're not signing Cooper Kupp as a free agent.
Didn't they announce that they're not bringing him back in? I think that he was one of the first like cap casualty style announcements where they're not re-signing him.
Well, he hasn't. There's no cuts yet, so it's still
right. But
his contract remains.
He is in that space where you could consider him a cap casualty. The Rams have already told him that he's not going to be a Ram next year. So
I think what they did with both Stafford and Kupp was you guys have full permission to go test your market value and come back to us and have a realistic number. Yes, Cooper Kupp, once you see what your market value is, we're getting rid of you irregardless because you're going to see we're overpaying for you.
If Cooper Kupp moves on, he will move on, and whoever signs him next, because he will be signed, if he can stay healthy, you get maybe 3 more years of very high quality Hall of Fame level wide receiver one. But to stay healthy at his age and his history of injury is a big if. So if I had the dough and I had the quarterback and I had every other piece almost in place, and you ask me, do I want to spend $3 million for 1 year on Cooper Kupp, or do I want to spend 70 mil or 50 mil, whatever a true outside X gets at this stage of the game? I would opt for the latter. I would look at the longevity. 26 years old, man. There's tread on the tires. There's not a retread. It's 26 years old, and he's a beast.
See, I would do the opposite. I would take the cheap Cooper Kupp route, guaranteed Hall of Famer. He's coming in on a discount from what he was currently
If you
getting
were the
paid.
Lions, you might. If you were the Redskins, you might. If you were Philly, you might. But if you were Green Bay, maybe that's the missing piece.
Screw Green Bay.
Well, you know what I'm saying, though. If that's the
I'm just saying
piece,
from a Lions fan's perspective. I'm not trying to sell Cooper Kupp to every team, but yeah, no, I agree. The look, the view at it. I'm just thinking from our perspective, what would I rather have if we're picking free agents and we're saying who are we going to allocate some money to? Because we really haven't done a lot of splashy free agent stuff, right? Brad Holmes has built this team through the draft. So, and this isn't a year where I'm seeing a lot of names on there that I go, got to get them, right? Khalil Mack's buried down at the list.
Khalil Mack is old. He's old. It's all about longevity. If you're going to commit money to somebody, there might be money better spent somewhere else, right? I'm not saying Khalil Mack might not have another year or two of 8, 10 plus sacks left in him, but it's not the Khalil Mack of old. And it all depends on how you view your franchise's window, or not even window. How do you view where you're at as a franchise? Do you need veteran leadership? Go get Khalil Mack. You need
we need depth.
We need depth. So let's look at this list. Let's look
Milton
at this
Williams.
list.
I'm going to throw this name out there because he's on the list. Everybody is on the list that I'm naming. But Milton Williams ranks right above Levi Anzawerke, right? So you have a cap casualty from Philly and a cap casualty, not a cap, I'm sorry, free agent from Detroit and Philly.
So where are they ranking in the overall?
30 and 31.
Okay. So that means that they have value. That means that they will get signed.
Well, Milton Williams was a big contributor to that Philadelphia defense. I mean, he was one of their D tackles that was part of that.
How old is Milton Williams?
Uncle Milty? I don't even want to get started on him. There's some stats on Uncle Milty. He's 25.
Then I think if I can plug in a guy like that over a guy like Levi, and again, not knowing much about the D tackle from Philly, Uncle Milt here, if he's not injury prone, he's going to command a lot more money. So where do we want to spend our money? I feel like I'm kind of all over the place here, but
that's a good question.
If you're asking me who to choose, Milt is the pick, but what are they going to command price wise?
Where do I want to spend the money? I want to spend the money on the defensive line. Because if we are going to rebound from last season, that defensive line has to come out like the Road Warriors. They have to come on full force, annihilation. This is Hutch, and this is whomever we put on that other side, right? I mean, maybe they wear the face paint while they're playing, but it has to be that aggressive. Brad Holmes has to go out and get his dominating side piece to Hutch. I mean, we have, Zadarius Smith is there, right? Could be a cap casualty.
Or could be a cap casualty, right?
Right. So I just think that if and I know, man, I was selling corner high last week. I think that's where the money goes. That's where we haven't put a lot of assets really into besides Hutch.
I can agree with you here that the money should be spent predominantly on defense, whether it's via draft pick or via free agency. But just to circle back here, we have spent money on this defense. Brad Holmes' first draft forever and always will be the draft that he went after defensive tackles, right? Back to back.
It's true. Levi Anzawerke being one of them.
We spent money on Carlton Davis, and it paid off right up to the bitter end. I hope that they can bring him back, right? We have spent money on both sides of the ball, but Brad made no secret that that he builds out from the trenches, right? You can see what he did with the offensive line and the Penny Sewell pick and the restructures, bringing back Glasgow, drafting Mahogany. He builds out from the trenches. So this is a good draft and a good free agency to be needy, if you will, on either side of that trench. We're in a real good spot with offensive line, even though you have one half of it that's super young, or a couple of real noteworthy Pro Bowl guys that are super young, and then you have another half of that is very old. And then what Brad has tried to do on the defensive line, you can't say that it didn't pay off, because you got Hutchinson and you got McNeil. But you also have a guy like Pasquale that we're going to have to make a decision on pretty soon. I believe he was a second-round draft pick. Is he contributing? Yes. Is he a nice rotational piece? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Are you getting out of him what you should have gotten out of a high second-round pick? You're not. So I feel like this could go either way, right? We could spend a ton of money on an edge rusher and an inside tackle, but you also have DJ Reader under contract for one more year. You don't even have to talk about making a decision on him until after next year. I don't know, man. So right back to it, to answer your question, subjectively, without looking at numbers, I would move on from Levi. But
I would move on from Levi too and take anything off this list that, not anything, but hey, I want to ask you a question, because this goes in line with defense, but you've got Carlton Davis, and I think for some reason everybody just feels like it's an automatic re-sign. He seemed to fit really nice with this team. If it's not, though, I'm seeing conversations of Javarius Ward being linked to the Lions.
Okay.
Coming off one of his worst seasons ever.
Now fill me in here. Is he from San Francisco?
Correct. He is from San Francisco. He's a corner. He was picking their first round. He's had a kind of disappointing season, but I mean, they're talking $40 million we're going to throw at this fella.
Well, and that's what it comes back to, is we just put stock in Terry Arnold, high draft stock. We turned around like Brad Holmes does, and he attacks a position group, and he drafted Rick Straw. You all right over there?
Oh, yeah.
Heard a big...
That's everybody upstairs.
Gotcha. So with the capital, or the investment, I should say, that we put into Arnold and Rick Straw, who then showed a lot of promise and got hurt for the year, do you want to go into free agency and spend that kind of money? I don't know. Is it time for Arnold to step up and Rick Straw to move to that nickel or get some significant playing time? Probably. And you can shore that position group up with a solid contributor out of free agency, and for a lot less than that. Because don't forget, we still have Robertson coming over from the Raiders and really stepping up big time last year, right?
Yeah, that was a nice pickup. You're right.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a hard projection to make overall when you're looking at the fact that our starting roster, if healthy, doesn't have a ton of holes. If you're looking at it as where do you need to beef up on, you need edge rusher, you need a good solid rotational piece on the inside of the defensive line. You probably need one more piece on the back end of your defense, but if healthy, or at least not as decimated by injury as we were last year, these are in a way luxury picks. What I wouldn't let's phrase it this way: what I wouldn't consider a luxury pick would be an interior defensive lineman in the first round at 28, a guard or guard/tackle or guard/center at 28, and I wouldn't even view a wide receiver or a corner at 28 as a luxury. Everything else over and above that is a luxury. And if they go for a project player or luxury pick in a safety or something like that, nobody's going to be mad about it, because everybody has this opportunity to come back healthy and rehab. And I've said to Wayne, healthy, we have arguably one of the best rosters in the league. But you can't, after we've learned last year that you can't bank on people staying healthy.
Exactly. So it's going to be to continue to build. So you said it, a defensive line, let's just say a defensive tackle getting drafted in the first round is a 98% probability right now, based on we want, based on what Brad Holmes is coming up and the list of these players. I think that's what we're doing.
Are you talking about Lions, or are you talking about the other 31 players selected. If you want to talk about the entirety of the first round, we're probably looking at 6 or 8 at this stage of the game. Pre-combine, you're looking at 6 or 8 interior guys getting drafted, I think.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's a great draft to be needy at interior defensive point and edge for that matter.
Well, there's where I'm headed next because a few names that I've seen obviously thrown out there. One, irregardless if the Lions take him, I'm real excited to see what Mike Green does. Dude, this guy comes off the line like a freaking missile. He hits hard. He can swim. He can swing. He can do everything. Obviously, he plays at Marshall, which will always be the small school knock on him. But from a fun guy to watch right now, just YouTube some of his tapes of him hitting the top offensive lineman prospect and just bulldozing him down.
Well, but I've certainly looked at that tape, and pre-combine, what is going to be hard to discern is Mike Green, the second or third defensive end taken. Is he a top 5 or 10 pick? Or will he underperform and maybe be there for us because he's a smaller school? Maybe he has a bad pro day or combine. He's a guy that may be a reality for us, or he's a guy that might go in the top 8.
No, you're spot on. I want to throw another name out there, Shamar Stewart.
Okay.
He's D-end from A&M. Big, 290, fast, raw, flies off the edge. So somebody else I want you to take a look at and tell me what you think by next week and we watch the combine. Okay. Charlie Campbell's had him mocked to us the last 2 weeks. Walt's got him mocked to us as well. And then another name that they threw out there was Nick Scorton. He's from A&M too.
I've read a little bit about him.
290. Basically plays with Stewart, and I mean they're a wrecking force. So it's nice to see some of these names start falling, and I can see some of these players because I'm like you, man. Before I start seeing it, I'm all over the place, right? Sure. Until I start seeing some of the tape of these guys and go, yeah, I could see him fitting in. I could see that working here. I want us to kind of throw a couple names out there so we can watch them, right?
We've talked about this in our text, and if I have to throw one name out there, top of my list, potentially available to the Lions at 28, again, kind of pending combine. Is he going to be, 19th or 18th or 28th? We don't know yet, but Kenny Grant from Michigan.
Okay.
Kenny Grant from Michigan right now, with what I've been looking at, is kind of projected in the 15 to 20 range. Well, like we stated last week, if teams are quarterback hungry or really antsy a wide receiver, that's how guys slip, right? So a guy like Kenny Grant, interior guy, not an edge guy, interior guy from Michigan.
350.
Yeah. A wrecking ball that also creates pressure. He's not just a run stopper, and he's a 3-down guy. That would be a dream come true right now, and I think the combine will give us a little more to work off here to see if we think he would be available to us.
Have we ever drafted guys from Michigan before?
Jeff Backus.
Aiden Hutchinson. Come on.
Yeah, no shit. I was thinking back past.
Don't bring up Backus. You always got to bring somebody up.
Todd Walker played here as a free agent. Remember Toast Walker?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I got my eyes on the second round pick too. So let's talk about that too, because I don't want to lose sight of another. That's my favorite round, honestly, the second round. So I don't want us to not put a name out there that you think the Lions are going to pick in the second round.
Well, again, at this rate, even though we're going to have to wait to pick, I believe, at the bottom of the second round, at this rate, a lot of the guys that we could throw out here could or will be second round guys. Before we talk about second round guys at any length, I think one thing that I've seen across the board, more so than not, is Lions trading out of the pick and trading down. So I think that there's a propensity here for us to be able to trade down. And if we have our board as every other team does, I think we could trade down from like 28 to maybe 33 with Cleveland and still get one of those guys that we coveted with a first round grade. If we can do that, If we can trade from 28 to 33 or 35 or 38 and still get one of the guys that we covet after the combine, then that is something that we have to do.
I mean, what if they trade out of the first round and the guy on their list is projected to get in the second round? I mean, no, I agree. The most predictable thing that'll happen is that third round pick that we're going to acquire as a compensatory pick. We will do something with that. He will trade that pick, guaranteed.
Absolutely.
He never sits on picks that he gets from other teams or other situations.
Yeah.
He always trades them.
Unless everything falls exactly the way that we would want it to fall in a dream scenario,
Of course.
I can almost guarantee that he's going to make picks outside of the first or trades. I'm sorry, outside of the first and second round, for sure.
Yeah, it's guaranteed to happen. It's guaranteed to happen.
Well,
So the only reason I was suggesting that is I want to talk about a player who I saw as a potential Brad Holmes weapon. I know he likes his offensive weapons like Gibbs, is Savion Williams out of TCU. Take a look at him. He's a wide receiver, almost Alvin Kamara comparison.
Like a slash type player.
Dude, big, fast, strong, but take some time when you're sitting on the toilet, pull up some film on him. And when I say he looks like a Brad Holmes player, watch how they use him and tell me that doesn't look like somebody that we would utilize.
Yeah, and it's funny too, and I'm glad you brought that up, that over the last few years that we've established this culture, we know what a Lions-esque player objectively looks like. You know, the most intriguing part of the whole process to me is something that we get to see very little or none of. It's the combine interviews. And I feel like with a guy like Gibbs that everyone said, whoa, they reached. Or a guy like Campbell where everyone's like, what the fuck? They really shit the bed here. I believe, in the interview portion of the process, granted these guys graded out well athletically, but in the interview portion of the process, I think they know in the first 2 minutes if they're going to fit the culture and if they're a Lions type guy, quote unquote. I would have loved to hear, the snap reaction from whoever conducts these interviews with Campbell and Holmes from when a guy like Gibbs leaves the room or a guy like Campbell leaves the room. I think after that interview process, as long as they're grading out as coachable and athletic, I think the interview can move them 15 spots up the board.
Well, apparently that's what kept Jalen Carter from getting drafted here, is that
there's a lot going on with him during the draft process.
Yeah, it was like the comment was made of there's a lot of talented players out there that'll just never play for us because of their personalities.
Well, and that's why we get these ride or die dudes that are willing to play hurt, show up and do full contact drills in the first part of camp. And they're not going to do that for this Yahoo that is coming on board in Jacksonville. They're not going to do that for everybody, but they're going to do it for this regime.
Yahoo for school.
Yeah.
No, you're right. That's what keeps these guys playing to the very last second for MCDC. You've got, we've seen it before where players just absolutely quit halfway through the season, and it is completely obvious that they are done playing for that team.
Yeah.
And that doesn't exist with this team. And I'm sure that's one of the caveats of playing now for the Lions is, you're walking into a culture where you don't have to worry about 60% of the building, 1 foot out the door. And that's not a fun vibe to have.
The things that we were able to see on Hard Knocks, the things that have been consistently reported over the years out of our camp, it may seem silly and inconsequential, but for these guys, it's not. The fact that Dan Campbell isn't making dudes cut their dreads, and the fact that Dan Campbell is just like, be yourself. The impassioned speech that he gave on Hard Knocks about getting into pads right away. He's saying, I'm paraphrasing now, but he's saying, men, I've been here. I've done this. I know what it takes. We're not just putting you through this for no reason. You do this for me, and we're gonna be a playoff team, right? He's really spent so much time on developing the culture that they're not gonna sacrifice that and bring in a guy with a pending arrest warrant, right? They're not going to sacrifice that and bring in a free agent that has been nothing but a headache. It doesn't matter if they're a Hall of Famer or not.
Yeah, you don't want any of those guys that are hanging out at any of those Hollywood parties. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
fucking
starting to think Kansas City Chiefs are just one big MK Ultra mind control program because, dude, you look at Travis Kelce
Yep.
now versus then.
Travis Kelce shit the bed this year early and often, embarrassed himself in the Super Bowl, and has just become this hashtag and this meme and something that the NFL can get behind to in theory grow their viewership. But like,
Dude, he's a freaking plant, dude. He's a Fed.
well, and not to drastically change the subject, but you want to grow the game of football, you find a way to do something like the Four Nations. Four Nations exposed and grew hockey so much in like a 2.5, 3 week period of time. It's unreal. Gary Bettman was on NHL Network this morning, and they were bowing down to him for the Four Nations and completely forgetting about how big of a shit show he has been as a commissioner for the last 20 years, right? Guys like Kelsey, teams that they prop up, like formerly the Patriots, now the Chiefs, gonna be the Eagles. They think that this is the way to grow the game, but it's this tone deaf response that all these boomers have. Look at what we're doing in Detroit. Look at what they're doing in Washington. Look at on a smaller scale without the success that they're doing in Miami. That's the way to get people enthralled about football. You put Lions back on Hard Knocks again, the viewership of every game would go up, right? So it's this tone deaf approach of it ain't broke, don't fix it. But Campbell and Holmes, again, just keep saying it, and I'm going to keep saying it. They have found a new approach in how to evaluate talent and how to structure a roster. And I mean, for fuck's sake, they gave Anzalone time off when he had his kid. Like, besides for a coach maybe like Bruce Arians when he got to Tampa, who else is saying like, man, there are more important things in your life than football?
That's
Lions.
typically the opposite, right?
Yeah.
No, I think it's a good point with the Four Nations. I don't really know what the NFL could do to rival that.
They could stop playing flag. They could stop playing flag football and American Gladiator drills with Nerf fucking footballs. They could find a way to do something better than what they're doing.
Well, what do? I mean, you're not going to have all the best premier players go kill each other at the end of the season when they have these injuries that are ripping their legs in half. I get that. The flag football, the gladiator stuff, or the American Gladiator stuff, people hate that too. I don't know. Do you just scratch the frickin' Pro Bowl, and do they just play Madden?
I think you do scratch the Pro Bowl, but you know what you do? You know what I really think you do?
What?
I think you take every team's practice squad and let the powers that be get together to build a team for the AFC, build a team for the NFC, and then you let these guys play a real game of football and attach some incentives to it. If you're the
What's the incentive?
If you're the hypothetically, if you're the MVP of this game, you'll get a contract. If the NFC wins the game and the star of the game was somebody from the fucking Bears practice squad, maybe they get a compensatory pick.
I feel like you're reaching on that one. I feel like I
don't think I'm reaching.
I feel like I'd rather just see rookies arm wrestle.
It'd be better than what they're doing now.
I mean, I would literally rather watch two offensive tackles play Battleship than what they're doing now. But it's the NFL. They have no reason to change, right? The only thing that's pushing them is injuries, and it is what it is on that.
I mean, it's a huge
and that's why they scaled it back. But the real reason they did this is because all the big names that go over there said, we're not going over there anymore. We're not doing that. Fuck, we got to dial it back because that's who people come to see.
Well,
no psycho out there like us exists where they're going to go see practice squad players.
Doing it before the Super Bowl now obviously omits, by definition, a quarter of the players that should have made that game, right? So they're doing it wrong. They're doing it backwards. I understand that they need to mitigate injury, but they could be doing something a lot fucking better than what they're doing.
Yeah, it's pointless. Like, just get rid of it. Doge it, baby. Cut it. Get rid of it. Peace out. I'm done with it.
I want an email from every 53-man rostered individual to let me know what they did last week.
Exactly. And exactly what they've provided, or I'll cut them for you.
Right.
But no, just in my opinion, you get rid of the Pro Bowl. They're never going to do that. it's too much money. It's something to put on TV, and everybody watches
Yeah,
TV.
as long as people watch it, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's here forever. Well, hey, so it's almost wrapping up. I got to take the Weasel to soccer practice, and I know you and your buddy over there got to bang some steel and burn some shit.
Oh yeah.
So what are your final thoughts?
Parting thoughts, man. I really don't have any. We're in that rare dead zone of the NFL machine, if you will. Looking forward to watching the combine, but am I gonna take time off work with my notebook and sit down in front of my TV and watch it live like I used to? No, I'm not. I'm gonna watch NFL Network. I'm gonna watch combine when I can. I'm gonna get online, like I keep saying. I'm gonna do the deeper dive once we have some more analytics. But I think, like we said the last couple of weeks, we're building towards something pretty fun here. We're gonna have a lot to talk about coming up.
I agree. I'll leave everybody with this. Everything Hitch said plus more. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Notifications on. Screw him. I'm not meeting you halfway in the middle. I demand it. And if you don't, I'll find you and I'll do it for you. That's my promise to you. But no, you're right. We got something fun coming. We're in a completely different seat and a different perspective as a team going into this draft. I'm looking forward to watching it with you guys, talking about it with you guys. I just hope we can get everybody on, and I hope everybody puts something in the comments. That's it.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to get a good roundtable going for a couple of draft episodes. Will we be able to get everybody on all at once? Maybe not, but we got a good couple of weeks to have an opportunity to invite some new people on and to do some fun shit.
Yeah, we'll have a good time. We'll have a fun draft spectacular for the next 2 months, basically.
Now that we can go live with this new platform, man, even if we can't get together to watch the first round, we should maybe jump on and break it down a little bit day to day.
Yeah, we can live stream. You let me know when you're ready.
Yep. All right.
All right. Well,
get the Weasel to practice. Hopefully Wayne will be back next week, but this was another good one.
Tell your beer assistant I said hello.
Deuces.
Peace.